What's up, everybody? Welcome into the All 22 podcast. It is the first day of the NFL Combine. Ray, today we have defensive linemen and linebackers hitting the weights, hitting the field. We're going to get to know these guys.
We are going to get to know those guys, but not today. Today, we're going to get to learn about the offensive linemen in this class, specifically offensive tackles. And it's a pretty darn strong group for 2024. I'm excited about these guys. It's a strong and deep class.
You stole my transition, Ray, but that's fine. We'll roll with it. The offensive line class, in my opinion, is probably the best all-around class that we've seen in the 5 years we've ranked offensive linemen. It's a great class at every position, right? It's not just tackles, it's the guards and the centers. But you're right. Today we're going to focus on the tackles, and it looks like you have up here
Taliese Fuaga. You could say it.
Taliese Fuaga. Of course it is. Taliese Fuaga. Yeah. Of course I could say it. So you have up Taliese Fuaga, and I want you to take me through his film and tell me what you like, what you didn't like.
Yeah, so just a brief summary before I just start hitting the plays, right? We did about 4 to 6 plays on each player here just to sort of accentuate what we see on tape when watching. But this is a really explosive athlete moving forward. And just a bully, just a strong, tough, physical, explosive, forward-moving player. And, some offensive tackles, right, they're dancing bears, right? Like if you're at a bar or a club, they will dance with you. This guy, when he's at a club or a bar, he is fighting you, all right? He's the bar fight guy, okay? That is Taliese Fuaga. That's as succinctly as I can sum him up. Fun player to watch, so we're going to get into it here.
Real quick before you do.
Right tackle. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, real quick before you do, right? 6'6", 334 pounds. He played 1,565 snaps at right tackle. He had a run blocking grade of a 79.9, pass blocking grade of a 90.9. And I just wanted to throw out some of those numbers before we dive in. I'll do that as part of the overview, and then I'll hand it off to you going forward. But let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, love it. So again, just a few clips here. We're going to show you. Again, he's the right tackle, number 75, Taliese Fuaga for Oregon State. And so what we'll see here, this first play, actually, what I really like, I just talked about how he's such a bully, right? But on this play, you're actually going to see him just climb to the second level and completely wall off a second level defender here. This is a stretch to the opposite side, right, over left tackle. And he's just going to get to the second level, completely wall off this defender. So if there's any sort of cutback, I mean, the play's not even on the screen, and this defender is just completely out of the picture here. More like 8 to 10 yards downfield. So just, again, how quickly he can explode out of his stance and get upfield and just cut off the backside players here. Phenomenal. He's very explosive out of his stance. So it's not just sometimes when you think of a 6'6", 334-pound player, you kind of think of just like a muscular, just sort of fight you in a phone booth kind of guy. But no, he can move athletically as well, especially going forward. One thing I liked as we move into the second clip here, we're showing you UCLA here is, again, UCLA, you have Latham, who is one of the top edge rushers in this class, number 15. So we get to see them going head-to-head a bit here. And one thing I noticed as the game went on is we started to see less of Latham line up over Taliese Fuaga as the game went on. They started moving him over left tackle instead, maybe to get a better matchup, but maybe because, he was kind of getting a little battered and bruised. But in any event, you want to see good on good, right? So this second clip is kind of, it summarizes what I see from Fuaga in pass protection in the sense that he gets the job done here, right? He's out of his stance pretty quickly, but kind of lunges a bit here, right? Decent strike. Layatu's trying to get to his outside shoulder and really does with that speed, right? Again, he slows him down enough because he has the athleticism to kind of wall him off for the most part. But DJ Uiagalelei is only 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage here. And you see Layatu really start to run the hoop here, right? And it's a quick pass, so no harm, no foul, no quarterback hit, no sack or anything given up. But it's a pretty quick pressure. And again, you're talking about one of the best pass rushers in the draft. Some think he is the best pass rusher in the draft in Latham. And you do kind of see that pressure given up here by Fuaga, right? But again, they go after each other more than once, right? So another rep here, best on best, good on good. At the snap here, he controls the elbow with his inside hand here, his left hand, which I love, right? But Leatu's a skilled player as well, so you're going to see as the rush develops, right, kind of swipes the inside hand there and catches Fuaga off balance. He kind of lunges a bit. And again, gets the job done, right? Because that's what Fuaga does. He kind of mucks things up. He's a physical player. Every second you have to bring it into play. They kind of all get caught up in the wash here. Again, no pressure on the quarterback or anything, but you do see kind of that forward lean, a bit of a lunge. He got a bit off balance. And again, this is one of the best pass rushers in the country, so it's probably not going to look easy and perfect. So he's getting the job done, but you see some of those balance issues that may come into play when he's facing against some of the top maybe speed rushers in the NFL once he gets into the league, right?
Ray, can you run that one back for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one of my favorite things about him, if you look at him right here, right, he's sitting, but his hands are active, right? If you have listened to my offensive line takes at all, you know that one of my favorite thing for a tackle to do is attack first with his arms and his length. And that's exactly what he does, right? Yes, maybe he's not perfectly balanced, but his first thing that he does is he punches and he uses the full length of his arms to create that separation, to not let the edge rusher into his chest. And it's very important. And it's not something that a lot of people do well. In my opinion, I thought he was the best of this class at doing just that.
Yeah, you see it right here. That right arm, that outside arm, is fully extended into Latu's chest, and then that inside hand here going to control kind of the forearm here. And then again, as the play develops, that's when the balance issue sort of comes into play. Like you see right here, he's kind of standing a bit straight up now. And Latu kind of swipes down and gets himself off balance, probably because it takes quite a lot of force to get a 6'6", 334 human being off balance in your own right? So, again, gets the job done, but it's not necessarily pretty. And, pretty's not exactly what we go for, right? We're talking about offensive linemen here. So, again, good battle. That's good on good. That's what you want to see. But again, that's just some of the things that can maybe be worked on as he's develops at the next level in the NFL, is some of that balance here. But this is his domain. So you see Latu again lined up over the right side, tight end stack here. And this is just straight. This is the bully ball we talk about. He's just walling off Fuaga completely off the screen, just double team and that's it. Just washing him out of the play. That there's really nothing to it. There's no unique or crazy insight there. It's just, hey, this is a bully bullying the opponent. And then this last one I had to put in here, right? Because I think this also just sort of summarizes everything that there is to love about Taliese Fuaga. So similar here again, right? Tight end on the line as well. You're going to see actually a double of the D lineman here with the guard. And then Fuaga's just going to sort of, again, just wall him off like he does in the run game normally. And then just watch at the end here till the end. Boom. Doink. Completely just knocks off balance his tight end here, right? Oh, yeah, my bad, guy. Sorry, I beat the hell out of my guy so badly. I just kind of knocked you on the ground there. So that's on me. That's Taliese Fuaga in a nutshell. He's essentially he's a bully. He's going to move people in the run game. And in the pass game, he's going to get the job done. He's going to muck things up. He's going to be physical. He uses his length well, but the balance isn't necessarily the greatest. Can be caught lunging a bit at times, but again, it's relatively fixable, right? This is still a young player, so there's a lot to like and a lot to love when it comes to just his attitude and approach to the game and his physicality. You love to see it. It's a fun watch.
Yeah, my one word for him was ferociousness. Like, he is an absolutely ferocious blocker. He's angry, but he has advanced form that a lot of the other ferocious players from past years, like, for example, like Kima Kwanu, like, he was ferocious in his own right, but he just didn't have the form or technique that I look for. And I think Fuaga does. And that's why I have him a little bit higher. We'll get to that later. But you talked about the balance, the weight, things like that. One of my notes I had is one of the biggest negatives I have on Fuaga is his build is a little strange for an offensive tackle, right? Like, he doesn't have these big legs. He's kind of top heavy, like a little bit Despicable Me, like a lot of weight up top, slimmer legs, and I understand why you would be a little bit off balanced if that's how you were built, right? And it's also just in terms of like aging and how that kind of a build ages. I'm looking at like a Bakhtiari on the Packers this year, who has a little bit of that frame, and he's dealt with a lot of injuries lately because it maybe doesn't have that base that you need to stay healthy for the long term. Some of the other prospects we're going to review today, some of the ones that Fuaga is being compared against, have some of the best frames I've ever seen at the tackle position. We'll save that for, when we get to them. But who do you got for me next, Ray?
Yeah, so I want you to tell me more about your boy, Jalen Guyton, out of Oklahoma.
Jalen Guyton. Okay, so before we do, I'm going to do my height weight numbers thing. Tyler Guyton is 6'7".
I don't know why I said Jalen. Is that the receiver?
Yeah, you totally messed me up, but I rocked with it. I rolled with it.
You know what I'm saying.
Tyler Guyton, 6'7", 327 pounds. So when you talk about those built in a lab type players, he is absolutely one of them. One of the notes I had is he's like DK Metcalf at tackle, right? If you were to build it in a lab, how would it look? It'd look like DK Metcalf at receiver. It would probably look like Tyler Guyton at tackle. He only played a little over 1,000 snaps, 72.9 pass blocking grade. Sorry, I wanted to make sure that was right. 72.9 pass blocking grade, 60.5 run blocking grade. So we're not talking about a guy with a ton of experience or a ton of consistent high-end play. What we are talking about is a guy that has a lot of just high upside ability, a lot of just innate things that, you just you can't teach, right? You can't teach size. You can't teach athleticism. Tyler Guyton has that in spades. So let's go ahead and jump in if you want to hit play. I don't have notes on each play, so I'm just going to talk about it unlike how I did last time.
Yeah, all right.
But this just that play, if you want to go back, showed the athletic ability of Guyton, right? He is a quick guy that you can pull. You can pull a tackle. He can find the edge. He can be a lead blocker. But the form, I love that you paused it right where you did. The form was atrocious, right? He gets there. I think what he's trying to do is create a lane for the running back between him and his other blocker, which he does well, right? The running back can run on Guyton's outside, find that lane and head upfield. But Guyton completely misses the block. He didn't break down. He didn't make solid contact. And it just shows yes, he has this perfect frame. He has great athleticism, but he just doesn't have the base yet. He doesn't have the foundation. Doesn't have the technique to be this all-around high-end prospect, in my opinion. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, here Guyton does a really good job walling off, if you go back, walling off his defender. The edge rusher chooses the outside. Guyton obviously knows the play is coming to his inside hip. He creates that lane. That's a great lane, right? Great job by the guard as well. But Guyton does a great job here. One of the reasons I showed this, because it's not a big game, it doesn't really prove much about his game, but watch the end of it. Watch how excited he is that they got the first down. It was because of him. He's pumping his fist. He's excited. I was laughing a lot when I was watching this guy's film because he's kind of a goofy dude. I don't mean that in a bad way. He's excited to play football. He's just loving it. He got the first down. He made a nice block. He didn't do anything that special on that play, right? But he's just excited to be out there. He's excited they got the first down. I love that, right? That's a player.
He's just like a kid out there. Yeah.
Just like a kid. And he is 20 years old. So, yep, let's go to the next play. Okay, this shows pretty good drop back. His ability to take on first and second moves. If you watch his form, again, you could just see the massive human being that he is and great athlete. I thought he did a good job setting up the initial block, but kind of like you were talking about Fuaga, he does lose a little bit of his leverage and balance just because the technique's not great. His feet aren't really moving with his arms. He punches kind of incorrectly. And at this angle, right where you have it paused, it looks like the edge rusher is going to make a nice play on the quarterback. I don't think he ends up doing that. I think the quarterback gets the ball out because he feels the pressure. But it just goes to show Guyton, again, has some things that make him special, but it's just not all put together yet.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk a bit more about it too, but it's kind of a bit of a theme for some of the Oklahoma tackles that have come out recently. They put a lot of tackles in the league, which, to their credit, they do a great job with the offensive line. But yeah, a bit of a common theme, and it's just they rotate. They kind of, it's an assembly line. They go so quickly. I think Anton Harrison was also super young last year. So again, it's kind of a theme with those Oklahoma tackles.
Right, exactly. Okay, this next play here just shows his ability to kind of see things, but he takes on a block with the guard. He double teams him. What I didn't like about this play, and it's something I saw too often, and I saw it in a few of these guys, definitely not Fuaga. Like you saw Fuaga finish that block. He like knocked his tight end over. He did that a lot. Guyton does this a lot, right? So go ahead and hit play. I want to see the end of this, right? His quarterback's still moving. What's Guyton doing there?
Yeah, got to look for work.
Basically just taking a walk, right? Go up and go run and find somebody to hit. I want to see my tackle do that. I want to see somebody run and find somebody to hit. I never want to see them walking on the football field. So again, a little bit immature, things that he'll have to fix at the next level. And I'm sure if he ends up in a place like Pittsburgh or something, that'll never happen again. Okay, next play.
I think that's all we got for clips.
Oh man, I want to talk about it more. Okay, well,
you still talk about him.
Little immature in the way he plays. Definitely doesn't have the foundation, the fundamentals figured out yet. But he's just a very intriguing size, speed athlete that will be intriguing for many of the top teams drafting in this draft. We're going to save landing spots and draft position till later. But I guess, Ray, tell me what you think of him.
Yeah, I think Guyton is a guy who, a victim is probably a strong word, but is a victim of the strength of this class, because someone like him who has the tools and the athleticism and the frame that people look for, right? He's got good length. He's a good athlete, and you can tell there's still room within that frame to grow and develop, because like you said, he's such a young player. Those types of guys usually ascend as we get closer to the draft. And on a macro level, he probably will continue to ascend, right? I think all these tackles will as we get closer to the draft. But it's hard to see him leapfrogging a couple of the other names in here, right? Like a Fashanu and Alta, even a Fuaga. And then from there, it's just your flavor of ice cream as far as, how some people view guys like Jordan Morgan, right? It's so deep and strong that he might not have that ascension to maybe an OT 2 or 3 that he might otherwise have in a typical tackle class. So yeah, it's a player that needs refinement. I like his athleticism. I like his length, and I like what's left of his frame. But it's just going to take a little bit of time to get there. He's not as plug and play as some other guys.
Agreed. Okay. Who do we got next?
Who do we have next? I think I just mentioned him, Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle out of Arizona. So if you have his numbers up, you want to throw out his metrics real quick, or do I got to give you time to pull that up?
I got it. I got it in front of me. 22 years old, 22 years old, left tackle. He's 6'6", 320 pounds. He's played 2,400 snaps, which is, I believe, second most amongst the better tackle prospects of this class, only behind Patrick Paul. He has an 87.3 pass blocking grade, a 77 run blocking grade. He led up 10 sacks, though, and 48 hurries. You're going to be doing this one, right, Ray?
Yep. I'll take that on. And so I kind of liked Jordan Morgan as almost a blend of two of perhaps the top guys in this class, in the sense that he's not necessarily as powerful and explosive as a Taliese Fuaga, and not quite as nimble as like an Olu Fashanu, right? But he has good, solid bend. He's a smart player, which makes sense given the amount of snaps that he's played so far. And then just one thing to note as we go through this, it was actually tough to find quality pass pro snaps, in the sense that Arizona had a mobile quarterback, and teams would not necessarily from the edge just kind of rush hard into the pocket. A lot of times it would be contained, right? Just kind of rush and then stack and just wait and see what the quarterback was going to do. So that played into it a little bit. And sometimes that makes it tough on the tackles too, right? As far as they don't always know where the quarterback is going to be. And so sometimes when he gave up a sack, so to speak, it wasn't necessarily on him as far as the sack being given up. It was just his assignment that got a sack because, again, moving pocket, moving quarterback, so on and so forth. But again, we're going to jump in here and just talk about an area of improvement that that he needs to make in the NFL for certain, but then keep this in mind as we move along the clips here, right? So here he is, number 77, lined up at left tackle here, also against UCLA, but this is not against Latu here. So again, kick step is fine, gets decent depth here, but is late with his hands, catches the rusher, and kind of just gets driven back, right? He never gets, at that point, a solid base under him, and just, again, kind of just gets driven back. So, again, you're just going to watch it here. It's hard to pause, but the rusher here actually swats down his inside hand, so he does not get a good strike, a good punch, lets the rusher get into his chest, and then just kind of gets walled off, right? This actually turns out to be an interception. Not sure if the pressure itself is what caused it, but it certainly did not help. So an area of improvement is those hands and getting that initial strike that we talked about how Fuaga does very well. That's an area of improvement that's needed for sure from Jordan Morgan. And then next play is kind of the same thing. Same rusher. Again, drop back, lets him get into his chest again, gets some help from the left guard here, double team, but still the quarterback is flushed out of the pocket. And if you watch again, just the hands to the outside, no base, there's no strike, just kind of gets pushed back into the quarterback before he gets some help. Quarterback flushes right, actually makes a really good throw here. But again, that's a pressure, and that's something that's going to have to be cleaned up. But we talked about the experience of someone like Jordan Morgan. I think that's really on display here. So the first two snaps, the rusher did a really good job of swatting down the hands and giving himself an avenue to get into Jordan Morgan's chest and drive him back. So you're going to watch here some real technical savvy here from Morgan, right? He's going to flash that inside hand and then sort of bring it back. You see the rusher swipe. Here we go here. I didn't realize I went this far back. See if I could pause at the right spot right here. Okay, he's flashing that left hand here. You're going to see the number 11 here. The rusher try to swipe at it. He pulls it back. So now the rusher is swiping at air and is off balance. And then he goes and engages and just rides him past the pocket. So this guy's taking in data. He's taking in information and learning and improving as the game progresses. Says, okay, fine. You want a hand fight? I'm going to flash my hands. I'm going to get you off balance now and then ride you out. So that's some next level savvy. And this is the game within the game, especially in the NFL. It's not all about being the biggest and the strongest and having the longest arms. This is the chess match that takes place between tackles and rushers all game long. So you see that adjustment from Morgan. So this is probably my favorite play on when evaluating his tape, period. Just, again, to see him kind of bounce back and how he gets that rusher off balance. So, again, this one now, there were very few of these plays in the UCLA game, but we did get him against Latu here. And so he's athletic enough to not necessarily get beaten to the outside shoulder by Latu, but a bit off balance posture-wise here. You see him leaning forward. This is not a strong base. He's going to be, because he's a natural athlete, he's going to be able to ride him out, and then they both just kind of tumble on the ground there. So keeps this quarterback clean, no pressure or anything given up, but the posture and the balance was not quite there. And if you're going up against someone like Latu, 25 snaps a game, 25 pass rushes a game, Latu's going to, again, that chess match, he's going to see that and counter in his own right. So some things to clean up posture-wise and as far as the hand fighting goes and the technique for Jordan Morgan, but he is a solid athlete with a pretty sturdy build, and again, a savvy player overall. And then this last play, just for fun again, just going to show him in space, just completely riding out the backer here and allowing for a big gain behind him. So he does offer some good mobility in the run game. Can't show you too many clips before the FBI comes and takes this video down. But so I like Fuaga. I do like Fuaga. Morgan overall, again, he has some technical work that has to be done despite being an experienced player and having so many snaps under his belt. There's still some work to be done there. But again, good base, good athlete. I might be higher on him than most, but I like his game a lot. He's a savvy player.
I think there is a lot to like about him. You see the first two videos you played, they're paused and you can see a clear kind of view of his stance. In my opinion, I thought he had one of the best stances out of all of the tackles. He has really nice hip depth in his stance. His hands, again, are ready to fight. But tackle is a little bit like being a hitter in baseball, where when the pitcher's winding up, you have to load back before you come forward, right? And put your hips through. And there's a lot of that kind of anticipation that leads to the moment of impact, right? And it's this whole process that a hitter works a very long time to prepare for. Morgan did struggle with that, right? At tackle, it's this, he's dropping back and he's ready to go, but his timing is just off a little bit, which allowed a lot of defenders to get to his chest. I saw that as a thing that happened way too often, is that he misses his punches. That's my biggest knock on him, is just missing those punches. Although I think he does a really good job of trying to get his arm length, use his arm length, get his hands on the defenders and keep them at that arm length. But you kind of hit it on the head, right? He is one of those natural, smooth athletes of this class. I think he does have a little bit of that Fashanu build to him too, which is underrated. People aren't talking about that with Jordan Morgan as much. He's a really good prospect. And again, in a lot of draft classes, you would be talking more about this guy. But because of the depth associated with this one, I really have heard nothing about Jordan Morgan. When I watch him, I'm excited, and I just don't really hear it.
Yeah, he's overlooked because of the depth of this class is really all there is to it. Now, I don't think he'll ever be a top 10 or 12, maybe even top 15 tackle in the league, because I don't think he has that next level sort of athleticism or elite trait that really stands out above the pack. But this is a player that's going to start 6, 8, 10 years at tackle in the league and be perfectly reliable for a given team. So again, but it's not sexy, right? It's not headline grabbing. It's not attention grabbing. So he kind of just gets lost in the shuffle a bit, but I think that's more so on the media side than the true NFL scouting side. I do think he's going to be a first round pick, early second at the very least, but I could see him in round 1.
Wow. Okay. You blew it. We're saving that for later, but it's okay. I'll forgive you.
Just a little something. I saw you drinking water. I figured you needed more time to kind of gather yourself.
The next guy is Latham, it looks like.
Yeah, so it's your boy.
JC Latham, who is my boy. He started at right tackle. He's 21 years old, 6'6", 335 pounds. I typically do not like these massive offensive tackles that carry a lot of weight. A lot of times it's because they're not great athletes, right? They're a little clumsy. They don't move as well. That is not the case for Latham. He is a smooth athlete. He played almost 1,900 snaps, and again, 99% of those were at right tackle. He did play a little guard in there. He's only given up 2 sacks on his career and 22 hurries, 2 years as a starter. So those are good numbers. Those are respectable numbers. 81.7 pass blocking grade and a 79.6 run blocking grade. So good numbers, not fantastic, but again, let's watch the film and we can talk about it. Go ahead and hit play. This is a guy that goes and finds work and makes sure that he knows what he's doing, right? If you watch this first play, he sees that he's not responsible for the guy lined up outside of him. So he moves to the next level and finds the linebacker. Again, you're talking about a 335-pound offensive lineman that got to the next level and walled off a linebacker down the field to create this really nice lane for his running back. I thought the running back did a nice job following it, but watch this right here. He walls off 41. He pushes him to the inside. The running back makes a nice cut, finds the lane, moves upfield. Again, just a massive offensive lineman that's able to do things that athletic offensive linemen sometimes struggle to do. Okay, play 2 here. Lined up at right tackle, right? Imagine trying to bull rush a 335-pound man. I don't know what this Texas edge rusher is doing here, but he tries to go directly into Latham's chest, and Latham does a fantastic job. Look at him already. He's got his right hand into his chest. He's using the left one to control the other hand, and he's just not going to get moved, right? You're not going to move him. You're not going to be able to push him out of the way. So he tries to bull rush, and he almost kind of gives up at the end there. So that's one of my favorite reps, just one-on-one, showing the absolute power that this dude has. Okay, let's go to play 3. All right, Latham comes up, finishes the block, right? Again, this is just a really big, powerful dude. Even if you stand him up for a half second, that's all you're going to get. You cannot stop your feet when you're going against this guy. He has him down on the ground. If that's how you finish a rep on defense, your coach is going to pause that. He might even print a picture and he might tape it to your locker just to ensure that that never happens again. So again, great rep by Latham. Okay, this one here, again, I think he guessed a little bit and was caught off balance by the linebacker. The linebacker does make a nice play. I think, this goes to show just, maybe he's not a perfect prospect, but I thought it still was a positive for me, right? He has a blitzing linebacker. He's 335 pounds and has to adjust very, very quickly. And he does it enough that he still gives the lane to the running back. No, it wasn't perfect because the running back had to adjust, try to find the lane, move outside, and ends up getting, that linebacker still gets the tackle. But it's still a good rep for a 335-pound man. So again, I just wanted to show a little bit of that athleticism. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Okay. Again, no, you need to pause that one for me. Go back and pause that one. If you end a rep like this, that's the one your coach is going to print and put on your locker. Again, Latham is just this devastating blocker, but it's not just in the pass game. He's not just immobile where he can just take 2 steps back and he's going to control you that way. This is a guy in the run game that is super effective as well. And here you just see him walling off, just collapsing the entire defensive line, pushing it down and creating a big old gap for that running back. So again, I thought that was a nice rep. And then the last play, I think here, just again, I thought this was nice because he deals with the move. He again, kind of like what you were saying before, he is able to show the hands, even put a little bit on him, and then pull it back and realize that, he didn't have a great strike on the initial punch. So he's going to pull him back. He's going to sit in his seat. Look at him in that stance, right? This is after the strike. He still has the base under him, and he's going to be able to control the edge rusher and keep him from getting to the quarterback. Again, doing it really nicely. You can hit play and finish that one out. And you're not going to get past him. Once his hands are on you, you're just done. So that's Latham for me, a really solid athlete for a massive human being. He's extremely strong. You're never going to bull rush him, but he also has some advanced skills and technique that I often do not see from guys his size.
Yeah, I really like JC Latham. I think he shows good power in the run game, shows a good base and really great flashes in the pass game as well. I don't think he's the most consistent player we've studied in this class. And I think that's what keeps him as a tier below guys like Alt and Fashanu. But the highs are just as good as the others in this class, as the best in this class. So just maybe putting it a bit more consistently on tape and, putting all the pieces together, I think would go a long way for him. But again, this is another in a typical offensive tackle class would be contending for tackle 1, in my opinion. We just have 2 elite players at the top of the class, I think. And then he would fall right below that because the highs are there, but the consistency not quite there. But you see everything you want to see on tape as far as boxes getting checked. Just want to see it a bit more often.
He's one of those guys I'm excited to talk about in relation to the All-22 era because, again, this might be tackle 3 or 4 this class, but in other classes, he absolutely would have been tackle 1.
Yep.
All right, who do we got next?
So next up, we have actually your other boy. I don't know if he is Amarius Mims. So I'm going to share that going here in a second. But yeah, another SEC tackle, another big SEC tackle. And we're going to talk about it.
Yes. Amarius Mims is not as much of my boy. I do like him. I do think he's a good prospect. And again, in most classes, I think he's probably a top 15 pick. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. But 21 years old, 6'7", 340 pounds. Again, a massive human being, but built different than Latham, right? Latham is more traditional of what you'd think of 340 and not body shaming anyone out here. But yeah, like a bigger guy. Amarius Mims is built more in the mold of like a Broderick Jones from last year. Again, those Georgia tackles where he's just kind of like the bouncer at the club that's built out of his mind, but he's 340 pounds, 6'7", and you definitely don't want to mess with him. But a 2-year starter for Georgia at right tackle. He played 803 snaps, which is not a lot compared to everybody else in this class. 2-year starter, 81.3 pass blocking grade, 68.4 run blocking grade. Let's jump into the film. So first play here, again, it's kind of like with Latham where it's like, imagine how embarrassing this would be, just getting stuck like that where you can't even move. Like he's got you where you're just watching the play. At this point, you're just watching the play. And this is Alabama, right? These are good football players. He's just watching this play. He's stuck in the outfield right now as an edge rusher. Can't even get close to the quarterback. That just shows the strength that Amarius Mims has there and good body control, putting himself in a position knowing that the rollout is coming his way. Let's go to play 2. Okay, gets his hands in there. This one is more of the, imagine just being this talented without having the form technique skills that, you really do need at the NFL level for tackle. But he's just so much stronger. His feet are dead at this point, but he's just so damn strong that he's just holding the defender away from him. Look at that lane. Obviously, Georgia has really good offensive linemen all around, so that hole is massive. But it is because of Broderick Jones. Amarius Mims here just walling off the edge rusher and creating that lane just because he's stronger than everybody else. So you could hit play. Just watch.
Yeah, I mean, look at how upright he is. I mean, there is no base at all right now. He is completely upright, and so normally you start getting completely walked backwards in this situation, and he doesn't because he's just so large.
And again, this is against Alabama. So these are NFL caliber defensive players. Okay, third play here. Go ahead and hit play. Let's watch it together. Steps back. So this one I want to talk about because it identifies a couple things for me. One, his drop back does have a little bit of a hitch to it. He is, again, this massive human being with this elite frame, but his form is just not there for me at an elite level, right? It's good enough that he could be a first-round pick, but to me, it's just not there. He's dropping back, and you see him almost bobbing and bouncing, that hitch in his step. In the NFL, that's problematic because when you're hitching, when you're bobbing, a defender's going to know what to do in that situation, and he is going to move you and manipulate you in the way he wants. The positive side of this play is he sees the late kind of movement there. The edge rusher ends up moving inside. He has great communication with his guard on this play. He takes over the block on the defensive interior player. It's a great handover, a great switch on the stunt, and he does a great job. But again, look at that form. His base is extremely wide. He looks a little uncoordinated, but he's just so strong that he keeps the block and keeps the guy at bay. So it is a positive rep at the end of the day. And again, I like that he recognized the late blitz.
Yeah, there's a lot to like there, but there's a lot of projection. I mean, he started 8 games in his college career, 8. So there's not much to go off of. We were just talking about Jordan Morgan having 2,400 snaps under his belt in college. Amarius Mims has literally a third of that. Coming off of tight rope surgery, which is basically just like a procedure for high ankle sprains that Georgia apparently just does to everybody. Brock Bowers has the same thing. So it's a lot of projection. Reminds me a bit of DeWand Jones from last year's class, who, again, if you were with us, we were telling you about this guy who's turning out to be, a starting caliber type of player here as we move along in his career. But same thing where he's just so big, so wide that it's just hard to get around. I mean, in those reps, you saw he's off balance. His base is out of whack. He's standing straight up at times. His hands are to the outside, but you just can't get through him or by him because there's so much surface area that you have to get by that it's all the time the quarterback needs. And again, just the natural size and strength that even when his hand placement isn't perfect, he's not completely driving his legs, driving his feet through contact. He can still just move his body in such a way that just walls you off, and you cannot strain and sort of walk him back into any rushing lanes or any running lanes because of just the sheer size and strength. So again, a lot to clean up. And I talked about it with someone like Guyton, but the same thing applies to Mims. Like you said, this is another one who almost a victim of a deep class.
Yes, definitely a victim of the deep class. I mean, in my opinion, I like him more than the other guy that was on his team last year, who ended up being a top 12 pick, right? So like you're talking about last year, there's a chance that that Mims is a top 12 pick, where in this class, I'm not sure, right? We'll talk about that later, but I'm not sure. Let's save that conversation for later. And who is the next guy we got here? It looked like you had me going 3 times in a row with Joe Alt. You're killing me, buddy.
Yeah, your absolute boy.
This is my boy.
Tell me about Joe Alt.
This is absolutely my boy. Probably the most high floor tackle I've ever scouted. Okay. There are techniques and intricacies to his game that I've never seen at the tackle position, right? Saying that, I think he has a frame that is great because he's going to be strong and he's massive. He's 6'8", 322 pounds, but I don't think he has that athletic build and bend that we do typically see from when we put the elite tag on a tackle. We see more of that frame. I don't really think Alt has that. Again, 6'8", 322 pounds. He's actually currently 20 years old. Come draft day, he will be 21, but we're talking about a very young prospect too. And he was a 3-year starter at Notre Dame. That means he started at 17 or 18, 19, 20. Very young prospect. He's kind of like us, Ray, just a younger guy in college, which is, props to him. It means he's going to have a longer NFL career, hopefully. 2,200 snaps, right? 20 years old. He has 2,200 snaps. He's only given up 4 sacks and 15 hurries in those 3 years. 91.2 pass blocking grade, 86.5 run blocking grade. Those are elite numbers, right? Other guys, we're talking about the high 70s, low 80s, some guys even in the 60s. Alt is that, again, that high floor player with elite grading already at just 20 years old. Before you hit play on the film here, first thing I wanted to point out, and the reason I put this play specifically in here, do you notice anything different about what Alt is doing already, right? Every prospect we've watched is in a 2-point. Alt, more often than not, has to put his hand in the dirt and goes into a 3-point stance, which when you're 6'8", 322 pounds, probably isn't an advantage to you, right? That's a long way to go. And as you can see, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because the guard, the center, the guards next to him, the tight end, they're a lot lower, right? Their butt's a lot lower. Alt doesn't have that athleticism, again, that I think a lot of other high-end tackle prospects have. He is a little high in his stance. You see his butt's pretty elevated. In the NFL, I hope he doesn't have to do this often, but, obviously he has experience doing it. I do think he needs to work on his athleticism, get a little lower in his stance. I think it'll help with his explosiveness. He's strong enough. You'll see he finishes plays very well. But it just shows me that maybe there's a little more to unlock with his initial out of, off the snap explosion on plays. Now you could go ahead and hit play. So again, has to kind of stand up, but does a great job walling off the linebacker, getting to the next level. Again, he's an athlete, gets to that next level, creates the lane. The other guys didn't really do their job, but Alt did fantastic on that play. But again, I really wanted to show just because of the stance. Let's move to play 2. Okay, play 2 here shows the patience. When I say he's a high floor player that has technique, there was not a stunt that I saw that fooled Alt. He sees it and picks up on it every single time. He has great communication with his guard. He actually hands the edge player off to the guard, make sure he has him before going and getting the stunting defensive interior who's trying to loop around to the outside. The speed is nothing for Alt. He's 6'8". He has incredible length. He does not get caught off guard almost ever, right? That is definitely not his weakness. So again, just a great rep there for Alt. Let's go ahead and go to the next play. Huge gain. Had to show it.
Put the whole thing there, huh?
Okay, showing this from the other angle here. Again, it's just another stunt that is nothing for Alt. This is Ohio State. These are some of the best athletes in the world. He just hands off, goes, right? Hands off, goes. He does a great job, and I never saw him get fooled. That's it. I don't really need to say more. Let's go to the next play. Here he is again, just so patient. I wanted to show this play specifically because of the technique and patience. He's so deep in his stance. His legs are moving at a million miles. He looks like a freaking hummingbird with the way his feet are going. Watch that. Dang, that's beautiful, right? But his hands are super patient. He doesn't punch right away. He lets the defender come to him. And once he feels like he's in a good situation, like I talked about a baseball player getting ready to swing, he sticks his arm out, uses his length, and keeps the defender the defender's just lost. I think the defender at this point has already given up. He knows he's nowhere close to the quarterback, and he's not going to get there. Again, Alt just basically just shuts this play down. Freaking hummingbird. Okay, another play that I liked because it shows the athlete that he is and his ability to get to the next level with his technique. If you pause it right there.
We're gonna ruin another locker room door. Is that what this is? Another locker?
No, not really.
Okay, just checking.
Because the defender actually does a nice job, and I think the running back, who is an NFL prospect as well, makes a really nice cut. But I just wanted to show Alt creates a lane, right? He's so big, the running back trusts him. The running back, if he goes any way but the way he went, is getting tackled by 3 dudes. He makes a really nice cut, and Alt just collapses the defender, right? He's so much bigger. He's so much stronger. He's going to do that to you. But okay, let's go to the next one. This is the play that I think... Oh, no, this is a good one, too. Again, just finding space, creating holes. He thinks the running back's behind him. The running back isn't because the center, I think, gets collapsed, center of the guard. But he does a great job here, right there. Look at that hole between him and the guard. The center's who gets beat here. But he does a great job, again, getting to the next level. This is a guy that, whether it's stunts or whatever you're asking him to do, he knows how to do it, and he does it at a very high level. Again, if the center does his job, that spot in between the guard and the tackle here, that's going to be a massive hole for the running back to go through. You could go ahead and hit play. But it collapses because the center and the tight end get blown up. Not an athlete. Okay. I put a little too much in here. I can tell I put too many plays, but let's go ahead and hit play on this one. Let's see what it was. Good. So sheer strength and size. Again, this is him just like, there are not many tackles that can pause it right there. You went a little too far. Okay.
Yeah, I went too far. Not really an athlete.
Not really an athlete. The edge rusher here is actually in a good position, right? And Alt is almost stood up where he's not able to really keep driving. He doesn't move the defensive end further like he wants to. He's so strong with his grip. His grip strength is so strong that right there, right? The edge rusher can't break, right? The edge rusher isn't even able to get an arm out to go reach and try to, get a hand on the running back. He's stuck, right? Alt is just holding him in place. The running back sees that. Again, trusts his tackle that he knows is this all-pro caliber tackle, finds the hole, goes off his edge, and actually gets a really nice gain when he probably shouldn't have had anything on that run. I think this next one should be the last one, and it is one that I think Alt gets beat. This is my only fault of Alt because he is so tall. Again, not the natural athlete that others are in this class. He can be beat with athleticism. He can be beat when somebody pulls the rug out from under him. He loses his balance on this play, and it happens to a guy that's 6'8", right? That's going to be something that happens. And it's, to me, again, it's kind of that separator when I talk about some of the other elite tackles that we scouted in past years. Their base is really phenomenal, and they're also great athletes. I don't know if Alt is that great of an athlete where he's going to just never have this happen to him, right? This is going to happen to a guy like Alt because of the size, because of maybe a little bit of the lack of athleticism on Alt's game. That's it. What do you have to say, Ray?
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player, prospect. I feel like you kind of mentioned the high floor, and it's definitely there, right? I think he can be a top 5 tackle in this league. I think he's that good. Because you mentioned all the boxes that you want checked for the most part are checked, right? The length, the size, the power, overall athleticism. Yes, there's things to nitpick because those are things that just kind of naturally come with a player that's that tall, right? When you're talking about a 6'8" player, the knee bend, no matter how athletic or flexible you are, when you're 6'8", your knee bend is not going to be as good as a great tackle who's 6'5". It's just the way it is. You're going to get caught off balance at times. There's so much surface area in your upper body that sometimes you are going to be caught leaning forward. Your weight's going to be in front of you, and you're liable to kind of get beat by a savvy rusher who's going to pull some cloth and get you on the ground because you're a little bit over your skis. But he's a fun watch. He's a powerful player. I get why everybody loves him, and I really like him too. I like him a lot, a whole lot. So I'm just going to get that out of the way now.
Good. And Ray, do you know how chickens came from like T-Rexes. Like they say, like dinosaurs, like the lineage.
That, okay.
Okay. Yeah. They say that like a chicken is a descendant of a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay.
Hummingbirds came from Joe Alt.
Joe Alt. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did Joe Alt come from Mike McGlinchey or no? Is that?
No, he did not. He's way better than McGlinchey. Good try though.
Okay.
Let's go to the next.
I did not pay attention in science class, I guess. So, you know who the next one is. It's the last one. So why don't you tell us about him? Give us the numbers and metrics, and I'll pull it up and we'll go from there.
You couldn't even say his name for me. Olu Fashanu. Fashanu, but say his first name. What's his first name, Ray?
Olumiyiwa.
Fantastic. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, 21 years old. Again, another really young prospect, 6'6", 319 pounds. Another massive human being too. 2-year starter at Penn State at left tackle, 1,349 snaps played, all at left tackle. Gave up 0 sacks in 2 years, only 16 hurries. People are saying this is the best pass blocking tackle prospect we've seen. 88.4 pass blocking grade this past year, 70.5 run blocking grade. I'm super excited to see what you have to say about this guy, Ray.
Yeah, the narrative is the narrative, right? This is a superbly athletic, smooth, fluid player who all that translates into a phenomenal pass blocker, which he is, right? If you were to just do 3 quick bullet points on Olu Fashanu, or at least my quick 3 bullet points are, yes, incredibly athletic, super smart, and stronger than you think in the non-traditional sense. So we'll talk about that a bit more here. That's going to be highlighted in the film, but he's the best tackle prospect that Penn State has ever had, and it's really not even close. Yeah, we'll just jump right in, because sometimes little monikers or impressions are kind of left when you call someone a great pass blocker. But and I think if you look closely, a lot of those stereotypes are not completely put to rest, because there's certainly a lot of things to work on with Fashanu's game as he develops. But it's not necessarily he doesn't necessarily have the limitations that one might associate with a player of that style. So we're just going to jump right in, of course, looking at Ohio State, since that's, at least in my opinion, the toughest front on the schedule. So first play here is versus Jack Sawyer, who some people were saying would have been a day 2 pick if he had gone out and declared for the draft this year, because he had a really strong end of the season finish. But we're just going to roll it here. Really effortless kick step, and just locks on, and that's it. That's it. Sawyer's going nowhere. Again, this is supposedly a day 2 guy. You see that arm length here. He's already engaged. He kind of does this thing where with his inside his right hand, he really just tries to control the action of the rusher with his right hand. And you'll see it here. Sawyer's trying to work inside because he knows there's just no way to beat the outside shoulder here, because Fashanu got so square. So he's trying to kind of run through him and work back inside, and just can't. He's trying to work back to the quarterback, and he's just getting nowhere close. His running mates here were able to kind of get the job done for him, but just doesn't really let the rusher get anywhere close to the quarterback. And that's just a theme that you see over and over again. So I'm going to run actually the next rep here for Fashanu versus Sawyer again. And so you noticed he couldn't necessarily get to the inside. So he tries to beat Fashanu outside, right? He said, okay, inside didn't work last rep. I'm going to go back outside and just look again. Patient kick step here. Again, kind of feints a bit there with the strike, and then just goes, okay, fine. You're not going to work back inside. I'm just going to control you and just go back. You're just going to wall you off, and you're just going to run past the pocket. Oftentimes when a tackle is here and he rides a defender past the pocket, a lot of times you'll see them both fall to the ground, because just so much momentum in that forward leaning to try to compensate for the speed that they're going up against. They just kind of naturally go to the ground. We saw that in some of the plays that we watched of other prospects earlier. No, the only one on the ground here is Sawyer. Again, yards away from the quarterback, not even close. Just perfectly comfortable play. And again, it gets batted down or something, because that's just what happened that afternoon. People talk about the run game with Fashanu, and he's not necessarily the people mover that we just watched with someone like Alt or Fuaga. He wins with body positioning and mobility. So here's just pulling around, just quick, easy mover. Again, just completely beats the backer to the spot, opens up a huge hole for the running back. And again, first down, big gain. Backer doesn't get anywhere close. So he doesn't finish it. The view's a bit cut off here. He doesn't finish the backer on the ground like someone like you saw Alt do that even to JT Tuimoloau against Ohio State. You don't see him finish in the run game, the defenders on the ground or anything like that. It's not that, it doesn't get you out of your seat, but you see its effectiveness here. And I think sometimes that goes unappreciated, whichever one it is, because it doesn't have that wow factor in the run game like you kind of see with him in pass protection. So again, the next play here, just another sort of run play here. Again, it's all about positioning. Doesn't knock back the edge rusher and put him back on the ground or anything, but just wins the positioning battle, walls him off, doesn't get anywhere close, and just, it's a big hole. The edge defender tries to set the edge here. He isn't able to collapse the lane at all. So it's a huge hole for the running back. Kind of ho-hum if you look at Fashanu. It almost lulls you to sleep, but it's so effective anyhow, despite not having that, and that sort of last bit of power and drive and strain to knock back the defender. So another thing that he shares in common with Joe Alt is just stunt recognition here and how smart of a player he is. So right away, Sawyer says, I had enough. I'm not going to go ahead and rush. Immediately looks back inside, squares up against the looping D tackle. And I mean, just look at that. The base is perfect. The hands are inside. There's no chance here. There's tons of room for the quarterback. Totally clean pocket. It's as comfortable as he's ever going to be. And Fashanu's tape is just littered with plays like this that it's like you're not wowed. It almost bores you because it's just okay, another perfectly clean pocket for the quarterback to work in and get the ball off. So now we're going to go to his reps against JT Tuimoloau. I think there's two left here. And what we're going to see here is one, I just showed you. Keep in mind that stunt that I just showed you, right? People talk about Fashanu's strength and how it has to improve because it's not necessarily on par with an Alt or a Fuaga. And I'd agree, he's not that punishing strength type of player, but I think the grip strength that you see in pass pro is totally underrated because when he gets his hands on you, you just stop. And I'm showing you a rep against what many considered the best power rusher in the country last year. He went back to Ohio State just like Sawyer did. For the 2024 season. So he's not in this class, although he could have declared. But again, already body positioning is great. JT tries to bull rush and kind of run down the middle. He's going to try to execute a spin move here based off of that. And it's just not going to work. He's just going nowhere. He just stopped cold in his tracks. Quarterback can easily step up, get rid of the ball. Great catch by the receiver, of course, because that's just what they do at Penn State when the ball hits them right in the hands. But again, strike, you see the length here. The JT tries to control the wrist. It's just not going to work. So he's going to try to run through him and sort of counter to a spin move. And the body control is there to just completely just stop it in his tracks. And then here's the play that I put in here only because everybody references this play when they talk about Fashanu needing to get stronger. And I have not seen one human being on planet Earth yet reference this detail about this play. Because, again, this guy gave up no sacks in 2 years. This is the closest he's gotten to giving up a sack and probably would have if two other defenders had gotten there first, to be honest, right? But I'm just going to let it run once and then go back and we can break it down. So gets, just completely walked back to the quarterback, right? Three guys converge. Quarterback goes down. Nobody talks about right here. The D tackle lined up to Fashanu's inside shoulder and rushed hard to his inside shoulder. Fashanu thinks this is another stunt. Remember earlier in the game, the same loop that they ran at Ohio State. He thinks that's exactly what's coming here. He is occupied with this tackle. He is actually not even looking at or worried about the edge rusher. He thinks this is another stunt and he has to pick up the D tackle. Tackle goes back inside to the guard and then he's late to then go back and engage the D end. And by that point, it is too late. His hands are late and then he gets walked back to the quarterback. and that's how he allows him to get in his chest. One-on-one, when it's a straight-on rush, you cannot find this on Fashanu's tape. So when we talk about strength and power, yes, he's not the explosive strength power of some other guys in this class, but this is the play that is referenced, and nobody talks about the fact that he did not anticipate this rush to be coming from the edge. He's looking at the D tackle here. So again, he got fooled here. This is an insidious call by Ohio State. Just a tremendous game up front. It's also 4th and 30. I'm just going to point that out too. So it's 4th and 30. I don't know if I said that at the start, but in any event, just wanted to address this play because this play always comes up when people talk about Fashanu and they just kind of take the low-hanging fruit about the strength argument. And while this on the surface seems like a great example, because you watched a TV copy, that is actually not the case here. He got fooled, had late hands, and then, he got walked back, got sunned. It happened. But
Ray, can you go back to the first play that you shared of his and let's go through a few of them again?
Let's do it.
Just because, in my opinion, I think Olu is going to be one of the most polarizing prospects in this class. The pass blocking strength that you're talking about, that grip strength, I think is fantastic. I also agree with you. I think he handles stunts maybe not as well as Alt, but it's pretty close. And I think Alt is, again, probably the best I've ever seen, right? So Fashanu is fine at that. He's very, very good. But there are things about his game that still make me nervous where I say he's not as surefire as a guy like Alt is. Are you able to get it back up here?
Oh, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing. I was playing this darn thing. I was like, yeah, Chris, start talking about it.
No.
I'll share it. Yeah, my bad. My bad.
So on the first play you shared, one of the things I noticed, and it's something I noticed pretty frequently in his film, when a tackle does his drop steps, his head should be in line the whole way. It shouldn't be bobbing. And it's kind of a little bit that hitch I was talking about with some of the other guys like Mims, where I worry that he's putting himself off balance sometimes. And I think it's because he is so quick and so athletic that he's moving very fast for a tackle. His drop step is quick, but he does bob a little bit. I would like to see him get some control on that drop step and become just a little bit more fundamentally sound. Clip 2, if you want to move to that one, I had noticed something there. Oh, okay. So a lot of the same stuff, but pause it there. To me, Fashanu reaches on this play and he overextends, something that he did semi-often. But when you're super athletic, when you're a massive human being, you can get away with it, all right? And he gets away with it here. He does a nice job recovering. I think if that's Nick Bosa, if that's Joey Bosa, if that's Max Crosby, if that's Michael Parsons, if that's Myles Garrett, he probably is on his ass and loses that rep. So I don't necessarily think that is a great example of a win for him. I do like everything you said about it. I just don't think it's necessarily a win. This play here, you talked about it already, but when you are 6'6" and 319 pounds and you're running into a linebacker that doesn't necessarily see you coming and is much smaller than you, even if you don't put him on his butt, that was a stalemate. That should never be a stalemate, right? And I think the pass blocking strength, I never question. It's that kind of thing that I question, right? Are you strong enough to push a guy back? This play I thought was fantastic, but the run is coming towards the defender. So the defender is kind of trying to break and still catch up to the play. So he is moving backwards. I don't know if he would if the play was running the other way. The play strength, the ferociousness, I'm not saying it's missing. I just wonder if he's not necessarily as confident in his attack points as other guys. Something, again, that concerns me. I think those were great reps to show both the extreme positives and some things that people are definitely going to have questions about for Olu.
Yeah, the strength, it's the grip strength in pass pro. It's not the explosive leg drive, throw you out the club when he's on the move or in the run game. That's not it. It's the strength to control action in one-on-one situations. Because you should with a running start be able to knock back a linebacker, at the very least knock back a linebacker on that pull motion there, and he didn't and does it. It's something that's what people knock him for, and I totally get it. At the same time, if my left tackle does that every time I run that play and I can get 18 yards out of it, I'm not going to hate it. But that's the thing that people wonder, can that be developed? Is that a leg strength? Is that just a matter of, hey, working on some lower body strength here to get to that point? Or is that just innate? I am a proponent of the belief that is more innate than anything else, that after a certain point, once you're headed to the NFL, yes, you have to develop that grown man strength. You're not the same at 21 as you are when you're 25, but that style and that knockback ability, a lot of that is just natural. And that's the strength part of his game that is missing. But a lot of times when people have talked about finesse tackles and pass block first tackles, like sometimes you think of like Alex Barron. For some of you kids listening, you have no idea who that is, right? He was drafted about 20 years ago, which is that's sobering. But like a finesse guy, but even when rushing, super athletic and long arms and was smooth, but never controlled action. Olu controls action. And that's why his floor is not as high as someone like Alt, but it's not as low as you think it is because of his style of play. Because when you really hone in on those reps against top competition, he is controlling the action because he has strength in other ways. It's just not explosive strength.
I think some of it is confidence too. Again, he was like 20 years old when he was playing this past season. He doesn't have that much experience to his game, right? He's not a 2,000 snap guy. Some of it to me is just experience. And you talked about it, right? Joe Alt is probably the most high floor player I've ever watched at tackle, but Fashanu might be one of the highest ceiling players I've ever watched at tackle, right? His floor is probably much, much lower, but that ceiling is massive, right? So let's transition now away from the film. Let's go into the ranking, stuff like that. So before I do, just want to welcome in everybody joining audio only. If you are joining audio only, you can go back to YouTube, watch the first half of this episode where we broke down film of the top tackles of this class. Now we're going to get into the rankings, talking about where they are in the All-22 era, maybe some comps, maybe some landing spots, things like that. And I'm actually going to kick this one off. So the guys we reviewed today, I think there are other guys that we could have talked about, right? There's the kid out of Yale. There's Patrick Paul out of Houston. There's the BYU kid. Like there are some really good tackle prospects to be had in probably the second, third round because this class is so darn deep. But from my perspective and the guys that we reviewed today, Tyler Guyton to me is, I think we've reviewed 7 guys. So I'm just going to say he's 7, right? I don't remember. But to me, he's this probably should be an early second round pick guy. I understand in other drafts he would probably be middle of the first round, but I see him as a second round pick because of how raw his game is. I think there's still a lot for this guy to learn. Early second round pick, saying that, I think that he has the potential to go to a team like Green Bay. I'm a Packer fan. That wouldn't be my pick. That wouldn't be my favorite pick. But I do think that a team like Green Bay likes to take raw athletes like this. They like to mold their own guys. Guyton is very moldable. You can see that intensity. You can see he wants to be out there. That's a total Packer thing. Like, I think he would be a great fit there. I don't want them to do it in the first round. They might. They have a pretty late pick. So I either see them doing that. I think that's probably the earliest he'll be taken is with the Packers first round pick, which is like 26. And if not, I could see kind of the floor to where he lands being the Packers first, second round pick, which is the Jets pick. I think their pick 8 or 9 or something like that, 10. So again, the Packer picks being 26, Jet pick being 211, something like that is probably, to me, the earliest and latest that he'll end up going. Where do you have Guyton in this class?
I think the range you have him is exactly right. And before getting into like a specific pick, I think this is the kind of player that, I mean, offensive tackle is always in demand. It's a premium position, right? So he's probably going to get taken towards the higher end of that range, that middle of the first to high second, top 40 type of range there. But this is the kind of player that even in all 22 now, again, will be in high demand, will probably get selected in the second round, maybe top of the third, around, pick 24, one of the top 24, 25 picks, because that's just, how it tends to go. I would not anticipate him grading exceptionally well early on, in the first year, in his rookie year. And that's why I always say, like, hey, please, whatever you do, do not draft rookies for what they're going to do for you in their rookie year, because it's because of guys like Guyton. I'm definitely ceiling guy. I like the ceiling, and as long as there's nothing on tape that concerns me, I chase that ceiling. So I think he's going to go in that higher end range, but this isn't someone who's going to test exceptionally well. I don't think so. Grade exceptionally well his first year. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's actually a really good pick by you for the Packers. I would say. I mean, Rasheed Walker stepped in there at left tackle towards the end of this year. I think did admirably. And so they still need other tackles and offensive line on the whole. So I think that makes a lot of sense for someone like Tyler Guyton. Also could be actually right before them with Dallas as well. I mean, Dallas also needs some tackles. Tyron Smith is up there in age. Even if he comes back on a 1-year deal, this is someone who, for the most part, doesn't or hasn't played a full season in who knows how long, or if he has recently, it's been one out of the last 8 to 9 years. And so if you take someone like Guyton and he doesn't start right away, that's fine, because this is someone we just talked about being a projection for, down the line, because he still has some development work to do. He's raw, needs some refinement. He's young, kind of has to get all the pieces together. So you put him in a room with a Hall of Famer like Tyron Smith, and you have Terrence Steele on the right side, so you don't have to thrust him into the starting lineup right away. That's an ideal fit. So it's hard for me. So we talked about top 16-ish to top of the second round. I think he falls, if that's the range you're looking at, towards the middle, slightly higher end of that range, because it's hard to see him getting by those two selections right there in the mid-20s, at least for me.
No, I'm in agreement. And actually, the comp that a lot of people have for Tyler Guyton is Tyron Smith, because of the build, that elite build. Like, I compared him to DK Metcalf. It's like, if you're doing that for tackle right now, it's Tyron Smith, right? There's nobody better. He's got a six-pack. He's 6'8", 350 pounds with a six-pack. It's insane. But is there a guy that you would say play style when he came out of college was similar to Guyton? And while you think of that, just talking about the All-22 era now, I have him as my 22nd ranked tackle of the All-22 era, which puts him right around Josh Jones and Cody Mauch from last year. So again, a very good player, but I think just because of how raw his game is, even though he has that elite frame, I have a hard time putting him above guys that fundamentally were a little bit more sound.
That's fair. So the name that actually came to me, and it's going to seem like a knock just because of how this guy's career turned out, or is turning out, I guess, but it's not, is Lucas Niang, who played some time with the Chiefs out of TCU, because he's got a great frame. He's got good length. It appears to be good length, right? Athletic, can bend well when he's not just, kind of when his technique doesn't just get all over the place. Really like the potential knee bend there. And it reminds me of Lucas Niang. And Lucas Niang didn't pan out well, which that happens for a myriad of reasons. But that sort of that frame and movement reminds me of Niang. So a little off the wall there, probably not what people were expecting me to say, but that's how I view that one.
I like it. Okay. My sixth guy was Jordan Morgan. Again, 22 years old, 6'6", 322 pounds. I see him as an end of day one prospect. I do think that he ends up getting right in there at the end of the first round. And it actually reminds me a lot, and his game reminds me a lot of Christian Darrisaw, another guy that went at the end of the first round because people were like, he's a little boring. Like he's technically sound. He's got good athletic traits. He's a good build, but he doesn't necessarily have the elite traits that some of the other guys have. So Christian Darrisaw fell to, I think, pick 22. I think Jordan Morgan, that's kind of what it reminds me of. Like, I think that kind of happens to him. Maybe he ends up going day two, but I think it's right at the end of the first round where I see his value. And Christian Darrisaw is my comp for him.
Yeah, he's probably going to end up end of first, even if I personally would. I don't think there's 29 players better than him in this class. I think that's where he may ultimately end up, probably right around that range. If you're looking at maybe the Ravens, that area there, end of the first, I could totally see. I think that's fair. As far as I think Darrisaw was more powerful and just impactful on contact than Morgan is. And I think he's probably a little bit smoother than we give him credit for, despite how he can sometimes get off balance. I really struggled with a comp for that. I would say it was tough for me to come up with one, because for every trait that reminded me of this, like there were some things on his tape that reminded me of Penei Sewell. All right, I'll literally go that high in some of the things that I saw that I really liked from him, as far as just the ease of lateral movement, even. But then when it came to a lot of other things, he was not Penei Sewell. No disrespect, obviously. We're talking about Penei Sewell here. So I kind of struggled with a good comp, but so maybe I could see the Darrisaw projection in a sense there, but I see him more as late round, maybe early second. So I think more so he would end up in the latter half of that range that we talked about with someone like Guyton in the early second round. So like, for example, if what we just discussed played out and Guyton goes to Dallas, for example, right? Maybe Green Bay doesn't take him at 25, but then at the top of the second, they can go ahead and get someone like Jordan Morgan there. I think that's probably his floor as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think then going to the all-22 era, I have him at 19. So again, a little bit above Tyler Guyton, but not much. Around similar guys like the Josh Jones, the Cody Mauchs, but right around like a Jedrick Willis, because I wasn't a huge fan of Willis. But again, it just talks about how deep this class is, where Willis ended up going. I think he was a top 15 pick, right? Morgan is talented enough to be in that range in a normal class. It's just this class is just so special.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that, I have Amarius Mims. So I guess that's again number 5. Amarius Mims to me is a top 25 player. I talked about last year, Broderick Jones, the guy that lined up across from him. I think Mims is a better prospect. But if you told me that those guys were twin brothers watching their film, they do have very similar builds. I think it's a very easy comp, although one plays right and one plays left. Amarius Mims, I think, again, a normal draft, he's probably a top 13, 14 pick. I see him going top 25. I think the Cowboys is where I would like to see him. That would be my ideal landing spot for him. And also, I think there are a lot of teams in that teen to early 20 range that would love a guy like Mims and just bank on that upside, because they saw the guy that lined up across from him have a lot of success early this year, right? In Pittsburgh. Mims could end up in Pittsburgh, right? I think they pick around 20. I think that's a landing spot that could happen as well. And then just really quickly, I have him 17. So again, right in front of Morgan, around the same type of guys, right in between a Darrisaw and a Willis. That's where I have these guys. They're all that good of prospects for me.
Yeah, I would love to see him in Dallas, but I think he's going to end up in the AFC North, because I think even before you get to Pittsburgh, because they need someone to replace, at least in my opinion, Dan Moore, you have Cincinnati as well, who I feel like has needed a good offensive tackle for the last 15 years. So that's another area where I think that late teens range, I just don't see him escaping that area of the first round. I would absolutely love to see him in Dallas, but I think that's the range he goes. I don't see him getting past both Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in any scenario, unless there's some type of medical issue at the combine or injury or something else. I think he doesn't fall far beyond the halfway point of the first round.
What's hard with that, though, is yes, there are a lot of teams that need tackle, but because of how good maybe this receiver class, this quarterback class, how many teams are actually going to take tackle? And that's why, like I said, Mims in a normal class is probably a top 15 pick. I just don't necessarily think that happens this year because I have JC Latham, the next guy on my list at 4, going to the Bengals. That was my pick for him. Again, he's this massive tackle, played right tackle, 6'6", 335 pounds. The guy that was there, Williams, is leaving because he didn't want to play right tackle, but that's where JC Latham is natural at. So it's an easy transition there. I think in a normal class, JC Latham is a top 10 pick, not even a top 15. I think he's a top 10 pick. This class, I see him as, the floor of where he would go at that 18 spot with the Bengals. I think they would take him in a heartbeat. But yeah, I could see the Colts maybe taking him. I could see the Saints maybe taking him. I could see the Raiders maybe taking him, right? So I could see probably pick 13 being the earliest that he ends up going in this class, where pick 18 maybe being the floor. And I have Latham as a tick better at the prospect scale. I have him at 9 on my all-time list in the all-22 era. So just, for consideration of what that is in regards to other guys, I have him right before Evan Neal. Again, Evan Neal was the number 7 pick in that draft, and people were talking about him as this elite prospect. I thought he was extremely raw. I think Latham is far more advanced in the way he plays football than a guy like Neal was.
I think the ceiling for Latham in this class might be just a tick higher than what you mentioned. So first off, I think recently Mel Kiper said he could go to the Chargers at 5. I don't see that happening. I think it was more so just like, they love to run the ball, or Harbaugh loves to run the ball, and Latham, powerful run blocker, they need a right tackle, so there you go. I don't think that's going to happen, but I could see him going to Chicago depending on how the top 8 shakes out. You got Braxton Jones on the left side there, can be the blind side guy. Again, move Darnell right inside if you ask me, so I could see that happening as well. So I would just bump up that ceiling just one pick higher to maybe the Bears at 9. Of course, who the heck knows with trades where the Bears ultimately end up trading or end up picking with that second first round pick anyway. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I could see him maybe just maybe going 9 to Chicago. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's a possibility. Other than that, I agree with everything you said as far as his range in the draft.
Do you have him above Mims and behind the other 3 guys we haven't talked about yet?
Him, Mims are like just right here. Actually, no, I'm gonna change that. Him, Mims, and Fuaga are all right here for me. I go back and forth because typically Fuaga is not really the kind of prospect that I rate highly. I'm much more on if you look at the tackle spectrum here, I'm more of an Olu type of guy than an alt profile, right? Both obviously very good. I'm not going to not take someone like Joe Alt, but I lean towards the length, pass protection, athleticism type of profile at tackle than I do the bully guys, right? And so that's something that I always grapple with, and sometimes I miss on guys to where I know he moved inside or at guard some, but like someone like Lael Collins, going back a bit, I wasn't quite as high on him when he was coming out because that's not necessarily my profile when it comes to a tackle. So I still go back and forth. I think today, if I had to, before they run at the combine and we hear anything about medicals, whatever else, which really the combine should be mostly about medicals and length and measurements and stuff like that, as opposed to really rearranging your player rankings based off of what you see on TV. I think if I had to select one right now and couldn't, kick the can down the road, I would go Latham, Mims, Fuaga, but probably same tier.
Wow. Okay. And I hate the Mekhi Becton comps for Latham because I think he's so much more advanced in his technique than Becton was. But I don't have a really good comp for him, and I'm curious if you do.
If I say it, people are gonna think I'm nuts, and I'm not saying he's quite at this level because he's just not. I saw some Andrew Thomas, so I saw some of that, and on the highs, not as consistent. And Andrew Thomas himself wasn't consistent coming into the league. We saw that early on in his career, and then he had that meteoric rise to being one of the top tackles in the league. So strictly as prospects talking, as far as the flashes I see, I saw some Andrew Thomas, and if I'm alone on that island, then so be it.
No, I don't think it's terrible. It's not terrible. That's a great comp. And I mean, you're talking about one of the best tackles in the NFL right now. So, take that with what you will. My number 3, I have Fuaga. I have Fuaga and Latham literally back to back. So I have Fuaga as 8 in the all-time rankings. So they are in my mind like back to back. You could take Latham, you could take Fuaga. I have Fuaga, even though I think Latham, agreeing with you, Latham is probably more on the spectrum of my guy than a Fuaga is because of the build and because of, again, like things I was talking about, how I think like long-term Fuaga's body type might not be as forgiving with injuries as other people's, even though Latham is a big dude. I think he's a really good athlete. So he should stay healthier. But Fuaga, I have a really hard time finding a landing spot for him. And I think I could see somebody taking a Latham over a Fuaga, and I could see Fuaga going to Jacksonville. Like, I think that's a legitimate landing spot for him there. And I like that fit. But there are a bunch of teams like the Saints. But I think the ceiling for him, the ceiling, I was going to say he's the Bears, right? Like, I could see him going that early. I don't necessarily think he goes before then. I think pick number 9 is pretty early for a guy like that doesn't have those elite traits. But I really like him. I really, really like him. You have him a little bit lower. Anything else you wanted to say on Fuaga?
I think that's pretty much it. I think the run, if you will, on tackles is probably going to begin at 9. You're going to have Fashanu and Alt go in any which order in the first 6 or so picks. I think by the time the Titans select, both of those guys are gone. And then at that point, I think the run starts right before the end of the top 10 there. And by the time you get to the 20s, they might all be gone. I mean, they really might. And like we kind of mentioned at the start of this, at the very least, I think by the time you get past Dallas and Green Bay, all those guys we discussed are gone.
Definitely. Agreed 100%. And now we're down to the final 2, right? This is the big reveal. And I think if you watched the film part of this episode, you kind of know where each of us is leaning. My number 2 is Fashanu, because of the things that still need some tweaking, right? I talked about during the film part of this episode that I think his drop back has a little bit of a hitch to it that some edge rushers will take advantage of. I think that he leans a little bit too much and reaches too much with his hands. I think that his ability to be hyper aggressive and drive people on run blocking plays leaves a little bit to be desired, right? The ceiling for a Fashanu is extremely high. Like, we're talking as high as any prospect, right? Penny Sewell, those kind of prospects. He is as high of a ceiling prospect as any of them, but the floor is what scares me, right? Because I don't think he's going to step into the league and be a top 10 player. Like, I don't think that's on the radar for him. I'm not even sure he's going to step into the league and be a top 25 tackle, right? He could end up stepping in the league and having a hard first year like an Andrew Thomas did. I'm not going to say Evan Neal, like an Andrew Thomas did, where in year 2 and year 3, you start to see the payoff, because I do think that he's much more intelligent as a blocker. He sees the things that you want him to see, the stunts, the blitzes. His technique is far more advanced than a guy like Neal's was at the time. So a little bit like Thomas in that regard, where I think it might take him a little bit of time to get into the league and take off, but I do think that he will, over the 3-year span, just establish himself. And then where does he land in this draft? I think he's absolutely a top 10 pick. I think he's absolutely a top 7 pick. I think the Titans is probably the floor of where he should go. I could see the Titans. I could see the Giants. I could see the Chargers. I could even see the Cardinals taking a guy like this. I mean, to be honest, the Patriots need this, right? They need it. And that's at 3. So there are plenty of teams that need tackle where I think Alt and Fashanu go that early. Top 7 should absolutely be the floor for a player like this. And then in the All-22 era, for me, I have him at 6, which is right between Rashawn Slater and Charles Cross. If you watched my episodes last year, you know how much or the year before, I don't even know anymore, how much I liked Charles Cross. But I like Fashanu just a little bit more. I think Slater and him, a little bit similar in the way they play. But I liked the aggression that Slater played with a little bit more. But again, I think the ceiling of Fashanu is much higher.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think when we're talking about Fashanu and Alt, we're talking about 2 guys where when you put away position value and you're just talking best players in the class, I think they're both top 5 players regardless of position. I think you have Caleb. I think you have Harrison. I think you have Fashanu. I think you have Alt. And I think you could put Neighbors in that category as well. I think those are the top, was that 5 names or 6? I think it was 5 names there. I think those are the top 5 players in this class, regardless of position. The fact that obviously quarterback is a need and is probably going to go 3 for the top 3, you bump them down a little bit. The thing with Fashanu is that when it comes to his ceiling, as far as where he can go in this draft, I look at someone like the Chargers and how things shake out there. I could see them being a landing spot for Alt, because Alt fits what they do better. They already have Slater on the left side. I don't think they want to change that up too much. And I think Alt can slide right in with that style of play, that Harbaugh runs, that power, and kind of play action. That kind of fits right into Alt's game, that downhill style of attack, much more than it does Fashanu. So I think I could see, even though, like you said, from listening to this, and I'll say Fashanu is my tackle one in this class. If I had to put a bet on who has a higher ceiling as far as draft slot goes in this class, it's going to be Alt, because of the Chargers sitting there at 5, potentially taking a guy that fits their system there in Joe Alt. And then with that, I don't see Fashanu getting past the Titans. Even if they were both on the board, I think he fits them better over there at 7. And if something happens because of crazy trades or whatever else, the Jets deserve another 50 years of complete irrelevance if they do not take Fashanu at 10. And that they just deserve whatever happens for them the rest of mankind's time here on this planet if they don't take him there. So, but I think both of these guys are probably gone by the top 7, for sure by the top 9. And then if by some miracle the Jets are sitting there and one of them is on the board, they have to take whoever's there. I think for the class, Alt's higher ceiling from draft position wise, but like I mentioned in the commentary, I like Olu's ceiling better. And it's just a matter of, I think they're both phenomenal players. Like I said, they're top 5 players in this class. You cannot go wrong with either of them. So to me, the best top 2 we've had since, and I haven't put my formal rankings all 22 era together yet or anything like that, but when you talk about the top of a tackle class, this is the best for sure since 2021, because you guys know I was in love with Rashawn Slater. So I think at the very top, this class rivals that and beyond that for years, most likely.
Slater was the year after the Tristan Wirfs draft, right? The Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs.
Think so. Yeah. I think that was 20, and then 2021 was the Slater draft.
Yeah, I think this draft rivals 2020. I think 2020 was better than 2021. I think this is closer to that, where it's not just really top heavy, it's also deep. There's great elite guys at the front of it. There's guys all over the place. Joe Alt, to me, again, just to reiterate for the people that joined audio only, he is the highest floor tackle prospect I've ever watched. He has incredible skill and technique that it's so rare at any position, like for a college athlete, but especially at tackle and offensive line. He is a guy that I think that can step into the NFL and be not just a day one starter, but Pro Bowl level play day one, because that's how advanced I think his game already is. Saying that, I think that his ceiling is much lower than Fashanu's. Right? Or I keep saying his name wrong. I apologize.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. Roll with it. Keep going.
All right, cool. I think Alt is probably what he is, right? Like what he is today might be what he is for the rest of his career, but that might be a top 15 tackle from day one. And that's incredibly special, right? That doesn't happen often. So you were talking about it, like that top 5, to me, it's a top 5 floor for Alt. I think the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Patriots, again, they can all use a guy like Alt. And I do think Alt goes before Fashanu in this draft class because of the floor that he has. Guys just want a guy that can step into tackle and play. One thing that was really interesting that the guys at PFF were talking about, and I think it's important to talk about, is tackle is a position different than any other position in football, maybe besides quarterback, where if you have any flaws, you can get exposed. Right? You have to be all around a great player. Receiver, you can just be a big bodied, streamer down the sideline. You can be a little slot runner, right? That all you do is quick little ins and outs. That's not the thing at tackle. You can't do that. If you are weak run blocking, you will get exposed. If you're a weak pass blocker, you will get exposed. If you have heavy feet, you will get exposed. If you don't use your hands well, you will get exposed. You need to be an all-around player at tackle. And that's why a lot of tackles in the NFL don't do great, right? Like they're just not that great, is because it takes a lot to be an all-around player. I think both Alt and Fashanu have that to their game, again, making this class extremely, extremely special. And I think it will be a very coveted position in this draft, where even if Neighbors and Harrison go before them, there's nobody else going after. Like it's going to be those guys, in my opinion. And then just the all-22 era, I have Andrew Thomas as my 1, Tristan Wirfs as my 2, and Sewell as my 3, and Alt as my 4. The reason he's behind guys like those guys, like I said, he's technique-wise in my mind further along than those guys, but it's because the high-end upside of his play, I don't think will ever grow like those guys already have, right? Penny Sewell, came into the league. People were excited about him, but there were still some raw aspects of his game. Now he might be the best tackle in the NFL. Same with Andrew Thomas. And Tristan Wirfs, if you've listened at all, he was like my boo. He was my day one guy. Like I loved that guy. Like that's everything I want in a tackle. So again, I'm going to have those guys a little bit ahead. But I think that's all we have for today. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep rolling out these prospect videos, going through position by position. But if you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch and listen to your podcasts. And thanks for tuning in.
Go.